Hey guys, it is the beginning of our big group project for this semester, and I know you will be relieved to hear that this is the only giant group project that you have to do for this class. So we're going to do awesome on it, and then you can relax and go back to mostly individual work. So today I'm going to talk a lot about the group project and what is expected. So we're going to talk a little bit about what's happening over the next 2 weeks. This is going to kind of cover both sections, even though this week really what you're focusing on is just kind of getting started and doing your sources. And next week you're going to be making your actual presentation and reviewing presentations. But I just want to go over both weeks because it just kind of makes more sense that way. So we're going to talk about the group project specifics, and then more on sources and plagiarism, since that's the big thing for this week, and then as well as a little bit about the group participation score, which you may have read about, which is at the end of the next week's lesson. All right, so here's our project due dates and things. Where's my pointer? Okay, so today I would love it if you guys could watch this meeting as soon as possible. Obviously, if you're watching it, you are doing it. And then I've seen that a few of the groups have already started finding their discussion board for planning. It is in the Explore section for this week, and it is just your group. So I have grouped you according to the document that I sent out. So those people are in your group discussion board and nobody else. So please start coordinating what time you can meet and how you're going to meet. Group leaders, the people who are the top line of your group, are especially in charge of trying to figure out how you're going to get coordinated and working together. It would be very wise to start doing your prepare section before the meeting. The prepare section is individual, but you're going to be using some of those ideas that you're going to be learning about in your group project. So it'd be a good idea to get started on that. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. All right, and then you need to start meeting with your group. Now your group may be meeting Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. You don't have to meet all of these days, but if you do want to meet again, you are totally welcome to. You're not limited to only meeting one time. Go ahead and meet as often as you need to, or maybe everyone can meet one day, but only a few people can meet another day. That's fine. Do your very best to just get things done together if you can. All right, so Thursday you have your prepare quiz, which is an individual task, and it is due again Thursday, and you're going to identify some study practice that you're going to be learning about in the prepare section that you could use to improve your own personal studies. Also, don't forget that last week's Enrich discussion board, you still have 2 comments to make on other people's essays from last week. So don't forget about that. Even though we're starting on our new big group project thing, we still have that last discussion board to discuss. All right, you got Friday as a free day unless you decide to meet. And then Saturday, you have your Explore quiz, which again is an individual thing, and you need to do this after you have met with your group. The quiz is just kind of about what your plan is, who's going to be doing what time are you meeting, just kind of stuff like that. Saturday, also due are your sources, which is what you're going to be working on this week with your group, finding sources, and then you will turn that in. Only one person in the group has to do that, and I've just determined that it's going to be the group leader for simplicity. So group leader will be turning in the sources for your group, and everyone will get the same grade on those sources. And then you have your reflection and evaluation, which is individual. Sorry, I should have put that on there, but that's just like normal. All right, so that is this week, and we'll go into the details here in a second. But next week, you will be working on your presentation. So you're going to be making a PowerPoint presentation. So you have all these days you can work on it. You can meet again, meet as often as you need to get this working right. But again, that's up to your group when you're going to be meeting. We are going to have an official class meeting, live class meeting on Tuesday. The reason why I'm doing that is because you have your midterm due at the end of the week, and so we're going to be doing an exam review. And then it's also a good time if you have questions about your group project to bring it to that meeting. So that's going to be on Tuesday. Then Thursday, again, you have your prepare quiz. Most of this week is all about making your presentation. You don't have to do any extra reading. It's all just kind of this research project that you're working on together during lesson 6. So the question is going to be about your presentation. It's not about any extra reading. And then your group leader is going to post your finished presentation. So this Thursday during week 6 is when those presentation slides are due to your group leader, unless they decide to have them due earlier. That is totally within their judgment call. If they want them by Wednesday so that they can get it done and turned in by Thursday, then you better do it by Wednesday. And then the group leader will post your presentation as an attachment to our discussion board. Then this is kind of weird. We have some things due on Friday, so please make note of this. That Friday you need to to review at least 2 other projects, and this is an individual thing, so you're going to use the rubric, which I'm going to show you in a moment, to grade 2 other presentations and put your review, kind of your ideas, the good and bad, on the discussion board. And then you will also be doing an Explore quiz, which is individual, but it's going to be about those reviews. So do your reviews of 2 other projects. I would write it down on a separate document and then save your feedback to put into your quiz. You're going to be just pretty much saying, here's what I found that was good and not so good about this other presentation. All right, Saturday is when everything is due and done. So by Saturday of lesson 6, the group leader is going to go back through and look at all of these. Well, actually, sorry, I should put this a different way. Everyone is going to work on revising your presentation. So if there was something wrong on the slide that you did, then I think it should be your job to fix it. So you fix anything that you find that's not so great with the feedback that you may have gotten from other students, and submit that to your group leader. And then it's your group leader's responsibility to submit a revised presentation to me by Saturday. Then you also will do a group project participation quiz. It says quiz, but it's not really like a quiz. I'm going to look at the participation points and give everybody kind of an average of how the people in your group felt you did. So again, we'll talk more about this at the end, but that is due. Just kind of evaluating how you felt your group members did. Then there's our regular reflect and evaluate. Then there's also a big exam due on Saturday. And then we have mid-course feedback is due, I think it's actually due on Monday, so you can take a little bit of a break if you want to, but that is extra credit. I would just get it done and out of the way as soon as you can. Whew! All right, this calendar hopefully will be kind of a lifeline for you to help you see what's due when. I will post this slide somewhere so that you can find it again, because I'm hopeful that it's helpful. Hopeful that it's helpful. All right, let's talk a little bit about what those group meetings are going to be like. So for this weekend next, you may meet via Skype or Hangouts or Zoom. I would recommend using Zoom now that we've kind of gotten a little bit used to it. You can, group leaders, you can set up your own Zoom room. In fact, anybody can, any student. There's a link to how to do that on the group site, as well as some other places. I'll get you, if you would like to do that and you don't know how, email me and I will get you a link on how to set up a Zoom room. And then you can always meet on your discussion board, your group specific discussion board if necessary, and just do back and forth that way. That gets kind of icky when people don't know other people's schedules. If that's all you can do, then go ahead and use the discussion board. All right, so lesson 5 in your group meeting, what I would do is figure out what times and places are, one of these places are you going to meet. Do you need to meet again? Do you need to meet a second time? Do you only need to meet once? What time are you going to meet next week during lesson 6? It's also a great time to figure out what your group member responsibilities are. Is everyone going to be in charge of finding a source, or only 2 people going to find a source and everyone else is going to do something else? I personally would suggest that everybody find like 2 sources, and then you can try and figure out what you want to do from there. Project timeline, you want to make sure that the leader lets you know when your stuff is due. So leaders, make sure you're very clear on when you would like to have all that information, since you are kind of have the responsibility, the added responsibility of having to turn it in on time. Then you're gonna also want to pick your topic, right? That's kind of a big one. But I think it's good to kind of get some of this other stuff out of the way. Then you're going to do finding your 5 resources and make sure that you're doing it by the rubric. Now, if you can, I would try to work together while you are meeting together to look at these sources. Let me get rid of my pointer here. Group leaders, this is the page you are going to be turning in. It looks like this. Hold on. Okay, so you're going to have your date to the group members, anybody who's not participated yet, and if you know why, you can put some explanation there. Then you're just going to put your references, APA format for your primary research, secondary, your 2 primary references, and other 3 references, which may be primary or secondary. We're going to talk about what that means in a moment. Then you're going to say what's your topic, what you think you're going to be finding from these sources. Okay, so you need to read through the sources and figure out if they are credible. You know, we're kind of using those 3 R's again. We're doing rational. Is it replicable? Is it rational? Is it what's the one I missed? The one that's right here. Reliable. All right, and then what learning environment are you focusing on? Are these studies for online learners or for coming to lecture and lab or any format? Is it just for college students? Is it for high school students? Is it for elementary school students? Okay, it could be all sorts of things. So those are the questions. This is the paper you're going to be turning in to me on Saturday, group leaders. But everybody's kind of in charge of helping to fill this in. So this does apply to everyone. All right, and then your rubric that you're going to be graded on. Let's see if I can get it open here. Basically states that you have. Here we go. Okay, rubrics, I remember, are kind of at the bottom of the enrichment options page, and it says you'll get full credit if you have 5 sources with at least 2 primary sources, and if they're from a peer-reviewed journal that's been published since 1995 or later, so newer stuff. And is it a review or a randomized controlled trial? Those are good, reliable sources. As opposed to an observational study or anecdotal evidence where people just say, well, there's one time I did 5 jumping jacks before I took a test and I did way better on that test. That would be anecdotal evidence. It is not from a peer-reviewed journal, but does seem to be reputable. Questionable source over here as we go down. So, and no citation at all, of course, would be 0 points. So just make sure you're finding good stuff. And again, we're going to come back to that. I'm just trying to go quick here. And then again, that group leader is going to turn in that assignment on Saturday. All right, during lesson 6 is when you're going to actually be making your presentation slides. There's examples and things over there in lesson 6 for you to look at, so you can kind of see what we're talking about here. And again, the group leader is going to be responsible for turning it into the discussion board by Thursday. And then you're going to review the other presentations using this rubric. Again, a rubric for you. This one is found in kind of a weird place in the Explore instructions for this section. Oh, is this the right one? I don't think this is the right one. This is the one from your, no. Yes, it is. Okay, sorry, it is the right one. All right, so this hopefully looks familiar. You got a spelling and grammar, so please make sure that you're checking things, read it through out loud, have other people read it through out loud. Interpretation of the claims. So does your presentation show strong understanding of what you're talking about? Does it discuss the science involved? Analysis of the sources. So when you're looking at other people's presentations, this is what you should be using kind of as a guide. Does their analysis include whether the evidence is causative or just correlation? So is this causation or correlation? Is the evidence support all the claims? So is there anything in there that maybe doesn't support what you're saying? Are there multiple lines of evidence? Is it reproducible? Is there a big sample size? So we're just looking for, are your sources good? Are they reliable, reproducible, and rational? And then the quality of the sources, again, is it a peer-reviewed journal? Is it recent work? Is it this good stuff? Is this a systematic review or randomized controlled trial? We're going to talk again more about that. And then please, read through the rest of this rubric. I'm not going to read all of it, but I'll just read the main ones. This is in order to get full credit. That's what they're hoping they are showing. So when you're doing your peer review, this is what you're doing. You're doing peer review for these people who are presenting to you, and you're reviewing them. You want them to get high points, right? So if you find something that's wrong, like spelling or grammar or things, then please point it out so that they can fix it. And then when I grade it for realsies, then I can give them those high credits. So that's the point of peer review, is that we're trying to help the other group to be able to excel and get the best possible score. Okay, all right. Then after you have reviewed people's stuff, then you are going to take whatever was commented on your presentation, fix it if you need to fix it, or strengthen certain spots, or cut out certain things, it's too wordy, or whatever you need to do. Revise your presentation, give that back to your group leader, and group leader will turn it in on Saturday in the final revised assignment submission. Okay, so that's kind of the timeline and how I'm assuming things are going to kind of work for you. So here are the more detailed things we're talking about. So a prepare for this week is that you're going to be picking a topic on a study skills assessment. This is what the page looks like. You're just going to click on take the study skills assessment, and it's going to give you some ideas of things that you can do to improve. Finally, it's going to give you kind of a list of some ideas here that are study skills. Did it work? For you to look at and could choose. So let's say I want to look at physical preparedness. Is there something in here that I could do better? Okay, here are some ideas about these things are supposed to help you to study better or to perform better. So this says to exercise regularly, number 4. So are there any studies out there, scientific, really good, rigorous studies that show that students who exercise regularly perform better? That's the question. So you go out and you find out whether or not there's any research for that. So this is your individual portion. You are supposed to pick something and do, I think, 60 minutes worth of research into that one thing that you think could help you personally in your study. Now, going through this first before you do your group work is a good idea, so that when you get to the group, you already have some ideas of study skills you can pick from, because those same study skills are what you're going to use together as, or to research more as a group. All right. So we're kind of backtracking a little. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I'm hoping it's making sense. So lesson 5, the big thing let's do are your 5 sources. And again, that's the group leader who's going to do that. And we already went through the rubric. Again, they should all be, ideally, they would all be peer-reviewed, randomized, controlled studies. That would be excellent. But that doesn't always happen, but at least 2 of them need to be primary sources. Again, we're going to talk about that. Reviews are great articles, but they are actually secondary sources. So if you find those, that's awesome, but make sure you also have 2 primary sources. Make sure they're newer than 1995, no blogs, news reports, or just using like BYU Idaho's University Study Skill website. That is not published in a peer-reviewed journal. Those are just some ideas that they've found. We need to do the research to figure out if those are really good ideas. And then remember lesson 6, you're taking all this stuff that you've learned and putting it into a presentation that the rest of the class can learn from. So you're going to have 5 to 7 slides. That very last slide should have your list of references. Kind of having an introduction of what the problem is or the question is great, and then each other slide could be what the evidence is for why this particular study skill is helpful, and what the studies were that showed that it was helpful. So you're going to summarize your claim, your sources that you found, analysis of those sources, and your conclusion. In the end, you might find that there's some that are not, that don't show that it works. So that would be a part of your analysis, that by exercising 5 times a week, that actually lowers my productivity in class. That could happen. So make sure that you're being honest with presenting what you have found. Hope that makes sense. Okay, let's talk about sources. So your primary sources, again, you need at least 2. Primary sources are any of the following. They are original documents like diaries, speeches, manuscripts, letters, blah, 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 blah. In this case, we're really talking about peer-reviewed original research articles. Primary sources, though, also include creative works like poetry, drama, novels, music, art, anything that someone has produced themselves, which also includes relics and artifacts, pottery, furniture, clothing, buildings, things that you might not have thought of before, like an architectural structure is a primary source. I can look at that and learn things from it that are from that architect. So examples would include the Diary of Anne Frank. It's her experience, right? Hopefully everyone has read that sometime in their life. The Constitution of Canada would be a primary document. Weavings and pottery from like a Native American history, that is a primary source. Someone made that. It is original work. And again, for this purpose of this class, probably what we're talking about, original source is a journal article as reporting new research or findings. Note that I highlighted the word new because that is important to distinguish it from secondary sources, which we're going to talk about here. So remember, a secondary source is something that interprets or analyzes those primary sources. So what we're talking about here are textbooks, magazine articles, histories, editorials, commentaries, encyclopedias, things like that, that read or look at something that is original and then describes it or interprets it or analyzes it. So examples here are like Scientific American. It looks kind of like a journal, but it's really a magazine. It is a collection of other people's ideas, and they've kind of put it together that way. It is not a journal. It is for consumers. Not for people in specific field. A history textbook would also be a secondary example, or a book about the effects of World War I or World War II. So instead of diary, like the Diary of Anne Frank is a primary source because it was her actual experiences and her writing, where if I take the writings of her and anybody else I can find and I kind of analyze what was going on, that is a secondary. In this case, again, for this class, the big secondary source that you're probably going to be finding is a journal article, which is in a journal, and it looks like an article, but it's a review, which means it's an analysis of old research or findings. So they might say, this group at Stanford found this, and this group at BYU Idaho found this, and this group at Yale found this, and they put it all together. Reviews are really awesome. I love them. They help to condense a large amount of information into one relatively short article. However, it is a secondary source. So you need two primary sources, so two original research articles, and then you can use the other ones, could be reviews, that's totally fine, but you can't have just reviews. All right, so how are you going to find this stuff? Hopefully you have a little bit of practice with this from last week, looking into some other research that you were doing, but Google Scholar is a great place to start, but it does have some limitations. It often doesn't have a full article. Sometimes it only gives you the abstract. So I'm not going to focus on Google Scholar. You can type in Scholar into a Google search bar and you can play around with it if you'd like, but it's not as nice as the David O. McKay Library, which you have access to. So if you go to the library's website, if I can get it to work. Okay, it has, so here's the front page. If I go down to this red box, there's a Find Scholarly Articles section, which is awesome because it automatically kind of limits things to peer-reviewed articles, which is what you're looking for. So if I want to look up the study habits of college students, which I've already done today, that was nice, that popped up for me. Then it does a big search through tons of different different journals for you. And that is super awesome. And look at this, I got over 100,000, almost 200,000 articles to choose from. I'm just going to click on this top one. Oh, well, before I get there, here are some of the things that the search terms are doing. So all of them have these words. They do have some related words. You can get rid of some of these things to try and limit your search if you're getting too much information. Now my search was super broad. You guys need to pick something a little bit more specific because you want to find something that you can really get a little bit in depth on. and you should pick just one study skill. Last semester I had one group that picked a few different study skills, and it was way too broad. Try and pick one kind of specific thing that you want to focus on. I promise you will be able to find at least 5 things about just one of those skills. So mine right now is really broad. I want you guys to think of something more specific. All right, so I'm going to click on this top one just for fun. All of those that were in my search were peer-reviewed, which is really nice, so I don't have to try and filter that. Here's the abstract and kind of the stuff that you need. And then, again, what's really nice about BYU Idaho is that it gives you the full text for a lot of articles. I think that entire list that I had in that search were all the articles. So now I clicked on it and it sends me to another website that has access to the full article. It's over here, download full text. Different sites are going to look a little bit different, but most of those should be able to give you the full text. So if I scroll through here, I've got the full text, I've got tables, I've got all sorts of good things to look at. So remember, when you're reading through this, you're looking for sample size, you're looking for the 3 R's. Is this reproducible, reliable, and rational? You might want to look up a little bit about the journal that it's published in. Is this a reliable journal? I don't know much about the Journal of Education and Practice. Maybe I should look it up, see how long it's been around. Stuff like that you can look up to make sure that you're getting high quality sources. Now, one awesome thing is if you find an excellent article, they all have their sources cited, right? And if you find a really good article, you can skim through these sources and find your additional articles that you would like to look at. Because guess what? These are probably focused on kind of the same topics that you are studying, right? So this can be a great place to jump off from and look at some of these other articles. I mean, look, this is like two full pages of other journal articles that you could look at. Another good idea that I had was if you can find an article together in your class meeting, and then you could kind of divide up some of this, looking up some of these other things within your group, and then that could be one way to jump into getting your individual research done. But kind of start together so that you kind of start on the right foot on a really good article and then separate from there. Okay, sorry. Hope this is making sense. Hope this is good stuff. All right, so again, I would really emphasize using the David O. McKay library. It can be a lot easier to find the full text, and there's lots of ways to filter things down by date, by journal article, whether they're peer-reviewed, etc. All right, so let's do a little sources quiz. I'm going to go quick on this ancient Greek pottery. You're all thinking to yourself, this is either a primary or secondary source. Which one is it? It is a primary source because someone made it. It is original to them. All right, how about the Hamlet script? We got written by Shakespeare, right? So is this secondary or primary? And of course, you're all thinking primary because he wrote the script. Now, Hamlet, the movie with Kenneth Branagh, or whatever version of Hamlet, or if you see it on the stage, is an interpretation of that script. So it is a secondary source because they have taken the script that was primary and they analyzed it and they decided how they wanted to interpret that primary source, so it becomes secondary. All right, a newspaper article is secondary, right? You're taking the actual events or what people said and combining it into a newspaper article. Now, journal article published in a journal that's peer-reviewed would be primary. Okay. Journal article review is where you have, again, a lot of them say a review, which is really nice. That gives you a clue. And then remember, it's a gathering of lots of different primary sources and analyzing them, and that would be secondary. And I again, highly recommend reviews. So I would find your two great primary sources and then find some good reviews that can really bring it all together. All right, now quickly through your PowerPoint that you're going to be making. Again, in Lesson 6, there's a template and an example to show you what you should do. You're going to do a claim analysis, so remember to kind of introduce your question or the claim of how this or that thing is going to help you to study and perform better. Be sure to include details from each study. So did they have a big sample size? Was it a double-blind study or not? Like if it's taking supplements or something like that is going to help you do better in class, or taking ginkgo biloba improves your memory. Then was it a double-blind study where some people didn't know that they were getting a sugar pill and other people didn't know that they were getting ginkgo biloba, and then they were given a memory test? That would be double-blind. If it's that everybody knows that they're getting ginkgo biloba, then that is not double-blind. All right, discuss whether you think this relationship is causative or correlation. So can they prove that this thing actually caused what was happening, or is it just a correlation? So we find that people who sleep 9 hours at night do better on their quizzes in the morning. Is that a correlation or is it causation? Do we know that it's the sleep for sure that's causing them, or is it the amount of the REM cycles, or is it the type of dreams that they're having? Or, you know, we might not know that. So that would be a correlation, for example. All right. You're also going to discuss whether it's reliable, reproducible, and rational. You're going to use proper spelling and grammar. Please try to get rid of any red squiggles that Microsoft will do with your spell check. Be sure to read things out loud. Make sure you do not copy and paste. That is plagiarism. And if there's any plagiarism, then that presentation will not receive credit. So let's go over plagiarism again real quick. This beginning paragraph is actually not plagiarized, but I wanted to note there's a couple of spelling problems here, so if they didn't look at this carefully. Phycology is actually, I think that's like fungus, so that's probably a real word, but they need to, they meant psychology, okay? Shared from their study, that's the wrong there, should be T-H-E-I-R, and then they have a quote, and they have I do have a reference, Kolesh 2010, and that's the right way to do it, okay? And then, though, this next paragraph is a quote. It's copied and pasted from another study. And I can tell because it says, we recorded whether or not the students attended any of the optional. At the bottom it says, we did this. And I know that my student was not a part of this, this study. So it should have been in quotes. So this is plagiarism. Now this one is not plagiarism, but it still will not receive credit. So the top paragraph is the same, the second paragraph is the same, except they've added the quotation marks and the citation at the bottom. If your presentation is full of giant paragraphs that you have quoted, then you will not get credit. I insist upon you paraphrasing, okay? You need to take what you've read and try to reword it as best you can in your own words to explain what was happening. And so instead of quoting this big giant thing, that doesn't show me that you have read and understood what you've read. When you paraphrase it, then I can tell if you understand what you actually read. Okay, so please paraphrase. Group leaders, if you're finding a group participant that is doing lots of giant quotes, please let me know. You might want to talk with them and just say, hey, that's a great quote. Would you please paraphrase it into your own words? It should be shorter. It should be, again, how you would describe something to a friend instead of just reading them a quote. Okay, group leaders, you're kind of responsible for that one too. So please try and make sure that there's not plagiarism happening. All right. So in the end, with that, each group member is going to evaluate all of the other members of the group, including yourself. And I would like you to use the extra attempts on that quiz to fill it in for all of your members. So I think on the quiz there's only space for 4, and most of your groups have more than 4 people. So use the second attempt to finish the other 1 or 2 people that are in your group. You have a total of 10 points per group member to assign. So if your group has 5 members, including you, then that would be up to 50 points to assign. So each person could have up to 10. You may not give any person more than 10 points. Even if they do an amazing job, then they just get 10 points. You can only use whole numbers. Okay, there's no so-and-so did 18.666666 points worth of work. Please use whole numbers. And then you will also be given a space to give a sentence to describe what that person did. So did that person find a source? Did that person help to organize the presentation, etc. Okay, so you're going to kind of describe what you and everyone else did. So it really is to everyone's advantage to make sure that everyone is doing their part. When we when I give you your score at the end, it will kind of be an average of what everybody else said. If you do not take the quiz, then you get a 0 on this quiz. So please make sure you are going in and evaluating your group members. Okay? All right, questions. You probably have some, and so here's what you should do. First, please talk with your group on your planning discussion board. Figure out when you're going to be meeting, and that, again, that discussion board is in the Explore section for Lesson 5. Start there. So if you have a question about something, start with your group. Maybe your group can help you. Then, if they can't help, then talk with the whole class on the questions and conversations board. There's a group project questions thread, or there's other threads. So bring your questions there, because someone else in the class may know the answer and get to it before I can. So kind of your last resort is to email me if you're having troubles. Then please email me and I will try to help. But I hope that you have used these other avenues first. Group leaders, you in particular probably have questions. I will be giving you an email very shortly, very early in the week, to explain a little bit more of your role and what you need to do. Please start by reading everything as early as you can, and that really does apply to everyone. If you read through the instructions on everything as soon as you can. And then here, again, group leaders, in case you don't know who you are. Oops, escape. Ah! Come back. Sorry. In case you don't know who you are, group leaders, let me say your names here at the end, right? Everyone hears their names. So our group leaders are Cheryl, Jaslyn, Christine, Adrian, Brandon Garfield, David, Kiernan, and Karen. And I've seen that some of you have already started working together, and that is awesome. Again, here's that link to the Zoom room setup, group leaders, if you would like to use that. And here are who are in your group. So again, these people should be in their group on that discussion board. If you're having issues with any group members, or if you are the person who's giving your group issues, please contact me and I will do my best to help you guys out. Whew! All right. I hope that that all made sense, because that was kind of crazy. And I think we're done. Good luck. I will see you on the boards.